The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
From the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, this is Legends. I'm Jason Bryant. Prepare for a journey through wrestling's past, present, and future, as we'll hear the great stories of wrestling and success from the true legends of the sport here on Hall of Fame Legends. While his career on the mat ended in high school, where he helped John Marshall High School in Oklahoma City capture a state championship, Ron Good's involvement with wrestling continued. If you've ever read America's first and oldest national wrestling publication, Amateur Wrestling News, then Ron Good's name is familiar. Serving as the co-editor and editor for almost 40 years and regarded as one of the nation's top experts on college wrestling, Good is highly respected for his match coverage, feature stories, columns, and rankings. Good attended his first NCAA Championships in 1977 as a volunteer for AWN before being hired by the publication that August. He spent 5 years under the mentorship of the magazine's founder, Jess Hoke, who was inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame as a distinguished member in 1977. Good studied music and participated in intramural wrestling at Central Oklahoma and says that he was impacted by Hoke's contagious passion for the sport. Good received the Bob Dellinger Award as the Wrestling Writer of the Year in 1989 and has been honored by the National Wrestling Media Association for the Print Journalist of the Year in 2007, and Amateur Wrestling News has also won the National Wrestling Media Association Publication of the Year in 1992. Recipient of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame's Order of Merit 2016, Ron Good. Now talking with longtime editor of Amateur Wrestling News, Ron Good, a recent inductee into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, receiving the Order of Merit at the 40th Annual Honors Weekend. And Ron, before we even talk about your career with Amateur Wrestling News, your love for the sport of wrestling, did you ever have the idea that when you took that job in 1977, you would one day be in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame?
Jason, not even a thought. I mean, that's I used to go to all the Hall of Famers, sit there and watch the big time guys come out and whatnot, and no earthly idea, not at all.
When you go back in time, as you got up there and they explained how you eventually came to Amateur Wrestling News, you were just kind of hanging out. You liked wrestling. You had wrestled in high school, and you found out there was this wrestling magazine in Oklahoma City, and you just went by the office and basically started hanging out. At what point did Jess Hoke go, "Hey, do you want to work here, or are you going to have to leave?"
Well, it took a little while, but like I said, they just got tired of me hanging around, and they kind of sensed my enthusiasm, and they were looking to hire somebody. And as the story goes, there was a gentleman up north. They were another candidate, and as I said at the Hall of Fame, they interviewed this guy. At the end of the interview, they asked him, "Now, what do you think about Myron Roderick?" And he said, "Who?" So that pretty much got the job for me right there. But no, I just hung around the office for several weeks there in the summer. And I don't even remember how long it was, but they just took a liking to me and hired me, and the rest is history.
So getting into wrestling, before we even get to that point, you wrestled at John Marshall High School, which most people might know the names Wayne Bachman and Wayne Wells, who also went through there. And when you discovered the sport of wrestling in the state of Oklahoma, it's probably not that hard to discover the sport, but what made you fall in love with it right away?
Well, that's a good question. I guess I fed off that state championship team. Anytime you join a group of guys like that, and all the success they had, I was a B teamer, of course, on that team behind Brian Rice, and then of course I graduated, then went elsewhere looking for this and that, and of course I followed all those John Marshall guys went to OU at one dual meet. Around 1966, I think, there was four John Marshall guys starting on the OU team. It was Rice at 23, Dickie Haxel at 130, Wayne Wells at 52, and John Eagleston at 160. So I followed a career all the way through college. And then, of course, later is when I joined the magazine. So I just kept my nose in it and kept interested in the sport, and I guess it took off from there.
Was there an interest in journalism? You'd said at the Honors Weekend your family had a real background in music. When did the journalistic aspect, the being able to write about wrestling, really start to enter your mind?
Well, it never did, really. When I got the job, I sat around the office and wrote a couple of little short stories. What they did was they sent me to journalism school after I got the job, and photography school. I took a photography class, and then went back to UCO and took some journalism classes, writing classes, just to get better have to write for the magazine. And then I just kind of created my own style. I'm certainly not a great writer like a lot of folks are. I just have a passion for the sport, and it kind of showed through my writing. But I was never going to be a journalist until I got that job.
What were those early years like? Once you got hired, Jess Hoke was still alive. He was a member in the Wrestling Hall of Fame as somebody who really was a pioneer in the sport of wrestling coverage. But explain that first day on the job at Amateur Wrestling News back in the late 70s.
Yeah, I can remember it. We had a little bitty house office just a block away from where Jess Hoke's family lived. He rented this little house, or he bought it, whatever. And I would just sit by the window in my little desk. They had a little desk for me, and all I did for the first month was read old wrestling news. They just said, go back and read all you can about what we've done, because the magazine started in 1956, and this was, of course, 77. So I just that's what I would do all day long. Of course, back then, we were a seasonal magazine. We published September through May, and then we were off June, July, and August. We didn't publish a magazine. So there was a lot of downtime there to study, and Jazz would read his Western paperbacks and whatnot. But yeah, I got to work with Jazz Hope for 5 years before he passed away, and sitting next to him. And, he had the passion, he had the love for the sport, and then he knew I did too, and it was just a joy every day to work with the guy.
What was the staff like back then? Obviously, Jess was there, John would come on, you were there. We know that Andre Reddington had a long career there, but what was the initial staffing like when you joined the crew?
Yeah, it was a home magazine. John Hoke, his dad, and his wife. That's it. It was the three. They had maybe a part-time girl to help stuff envelopes back then, but that basically was it. And I was really the first person they ever really hired outside the family. So it was really a family business from day one.
How quickly did you feel you became part of that family?
Pretty quick. I loved wrestling, and they could see it. And taking the courses, taking the courses for writing and the photography, I kind of took off and just learned on-the-job training, basically, is what it was.
When you sat down and read some of those early magazines, I know I've got a batch of some older magazines. I've seen the very first, which was then known as Wrestling News and Reports, and you see how it evolved in the 20 years before you got there, and then it became what every wrestling fan in the country needed to know about wrestling. They were waiting by their mailboxes. And when you came on and started writing a column and became more active in it, what were some of the impressive things that really drew you to the magazine in terms of like education? Because there's a lot of educational information in there in terms of the actual news of the day that was so hard to get anywhere else. Even now you just turn on a computer and you've got press releases for every school. But what was one thing that you'd set out to do when you got that job? Be like, all right, I think I can make an impact with this more than just liking the sport of wrestling.
Yeah, I guess I would say the rankings was really what my big deal was. we did like a ranking a couple times a year. We ranked 3 guys each weight class. It's a mid-season thing. That was easy to do, of course, and of course the team ranking was always there. But I thought I could do an individual ranking each issue, ranking 8 guys each weight class, and just Hope didn't want us to do that. They didn't want us to get into that in those arguments and with the coaches and that kind of. I don't know why he didn't like it, but I talked him into doing those rankings in '79, I believe. I was there for about a year, and I think that really took off. It really helped the magazine take off because those, as you know, those rankings are gold. Everybody wants them. Now there's so many of them, but back then we were the only show in town, and I think that was my big deal at the time.
In an era before the internet, I know when I sat down and did rankings when I was working with you guys and when I was working with Intermat and the Open Mat, it would take probably me a full day and a half to catch every result from every athlete and try to piece them together. What was it like when you said, all right, I'm going to do this? How did you compile that information? Because, again, you were reliant on just basically things that were mailed in, essentially, right?
That's right. Back in the day, just a mail in. Of course, and what I did from the start until the very end, till way back, till up to 2010 even, I would have a notebook, and I'd write have one page for each weight class, and I would actually write the highlighted scores in this notebook every week till the end of the week came, and it's time to do the rankings. I'd go back and compare the scores and compile the rankings that way. I did that same style for years and years. That's what I did.
Back then, I mean, I guess ranking 8 guys was difficult with the lack of information that was available. When did you start expanding and be like, all right, I'm gonna make these more. I'm gonna put more wrestlers in these rankings?
Yeah, we went to 12. Started with 8, then we went to 12. It was kind of obvious because there was 12 guys seeded in the NCAA tournament, and then coaches would call Drexel or some of the lesser schools would call Ryder, the coach there, Gary Taylor. He said, "Why don't you guys rank 20? It'd be so good for the sport to have more kids involved." I said, "Oh my gosh, that's just more work." But I said, "You know what? It's probably a good idea." So I'm not sure what year we went to 20, but we went to 20 and it made the job a little bit harder because 1 through 10 is, but you get 10 through 20, then it gets muddled up. And it's really, but it helps the kids. Acknowledge the kids each week, and we went ahead and did it. And then, of course, now everybody goes 20, so go 30.
Yeah, I never wanted to go past 20. I can tell you that right now from my own experiences.
Yeah, right.
Once you get to 15, it was like, all right, well, 15 through 25 can be in basically any order.
That's right. But just the acknowledgement of the kids is what the main goal was, and hopefully we helped a lot of youngsters get their name out and have some fun with it.
There's super tournaments with the high school level where you see a lot of college coaches recruiting. And in those early years, what was the travel like? I mean, there's relationships built over the years that you see a same coach here and there that may not be from Oklahoma. You're starting to see the same people everywhere. And from a journalistic aspect, you've got to separate what is a friendly relationship with a working relationship. And how did you try to balance that when you say you got a call from Gary Taylor or Jack Childs and be like, hey, and did you see him? But you have to make sure, hey, we're friends, but this is we're not. There's nothing personal here.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't have any trouble with that because I didn't show any favoritism. That's one thing I can say. I never was favored any one team to another, one coach to another, and I think they knew that. And I travel 8, 10, 12 times a year, and I go on real well with the coaches. Some coaches were like Harold Nichols. Just take Harold Nichols for instance. He wouldn't say anything. He was tough to talk to. And others like Stan Abel were easy to talk to. And then, of course, when Nichols retires, then he completely changes his face. I remember the first time I saw Harold Nichols after he retired, he comes up, gives me gets me in a headlock, jokingly. He would never have done that when he was a coach. So, different faces after they retire. But I didn't have any trouble with coaches. I always got along with all of them pretty well because I'm kind of a kind guy anyway. I didn't make any enemies, so there you go.
Was there ever a coach that when you encountered for the first time that kind of took you back a little bit? You're like, I am actually talking to this coach. I'm being from Oklahoma. You've got the Oklahoma State guys there, but who from outside of the state when you first met, you were just like kind of blown away by their presence? Oh
gosh, that's a good question. Of course, Dan Gable would have to be up there. He's such a friendly, funny guy. It worked out fine. But I'm trying to think somebody else. Even back in the day, I go back to Myron Roderick. Of course, he was local. You want someone national. Let's see. Dale Thomas, Oregon State. He was kind of a legend in Iowa and at Oregon State for years and years and years. I guess I met him first at Las Vegas, and kind of a humbling experience. But like I said, everybody respected what I did, and they knew I wasn't going to oversee my talent with them, and I had any trouble. I just had a good time with good relationship with most every coach.
It wasn't just the rankings. Your column Off the Mat has been a mainstay in the magazine for decades. When do you remember writing the very first Off the Mat column? And how long did you think this thing would be a standing feature?
Yeah. I think it was 1981. I started that column. Just a guess. And I get back then I would get phone calls, I would get mail from people, I would send out a coach's form to fill out for their team and their expectations for the season. And I got to thinking, man, I've got all this information. Why don't I just put it in a column style notes? And John and Jess said, man, that's a good idea. And I started doing that. And I'm sure my original columns weren't too good, but at least they were kind of like a tidbit column. But, I expanded it to, sometimes there were more than one page. But that was really a good idea I had, and I'm kind of proud of those columns. I did enough of them.
How much of it back then was more collection of data and just disseminating information and being able to put it and frame it into a readable context versus, sitting down and being able to do a real in-depth feature type of story, a Sports Illustrated type of story?
Yeah, I'm not good. I don't think I was talented enough to do that. So what I would do, I'd have a column notebook. Anytime I got something in the mail or a phone call, I'd write it down, just stick it in this notebook. And by the end of the month, I'd just go back and look at all my notes and just assemble a notes column. That's basically all I did.
Now, laying out a magazine, that's something that's it's evolved over the years. What were those first days when you're going down there and like, this is how you lay out the magazine? I'm guessing you've got the Jess Hoke and John have the light tables and the glue and all sorts of typewriters. What was the typesetting like back then?
Oh, it was crazy. I wasn't the one that had to do that because Jess was the expert at that. But I was the gopher. I would type out on a piece of copy paper our copy and take it 5 miles down the road to our typesetter. I go back and forth. We had the proofs back in the office, and we read the proofs, and I'd take them back and forth. To think back and see what we did in today's world, I don't know how we did it. I just really don't know how we did it. But you cut the galleys, and the glue, you paste them on the pages, these big old long pages, and you take them to the press. And back then, we were also doing one every 2 weeks. So from December to February, there wasn't much time to do anything but work at that office. And we worked late at night sometimes, and And then, of course, the time come where we decided to go monthly, and that really helped us a lot on the time thing.
Was there a point when you were sitting there and realizing that, wait a minute, this magazine is a lot bigger than I thought it was in terms of its national scope, and you're finding yourself people recognizing your name and be like, wow, I'm kind of making an impact here?
Oh, yeah, I'm kind of a private person. I'm not an award getter, and I kind of just didn't even think about it. It was just my dream job, and I just enjoyed. I enjoyed every day of it, and so I didn't really even think about how big it was. I never got the big head, and I just kind of kept going and my style, and I know what you're saying, but I really didn't think about it like that.
When the magazines became, people would refer to it as the Bible of wrestling. I'm looking through some old amateur wrestling news magazines, and then there's the World Cup, the World Championships, a lot more international coverage. When you guys went from covering more of that international stuff, I mean, what was the learning curve there, going from this foreign style that Americans are starting to have success in the 80s, as we learned that there's recently a book published about the 80s was the golden age of wrestling in terms of medals won and great teams. But when you balance the high school coverage, the college coverage, the international stuff, I mean, how much do you learn? Do you keep learning on a daily basis back in those years?
Well, we always had people that help us. Lisa Little, who's Leroy Smith's wife, she did all our international stuff. I was Mr. College guy, and I hate to say that, but I'm not to be limited. But I was the college guy, and we always had high school help, high school people that did our rankings, and I of course enjoyed all aspects of the sport. But my focus was on college. Even John Hogue would say, you need to get out of that rut, but that's what I liked. So that's what he let me do, and we hired other people to cover the other aspects of the sport.
What were some of the more memorable events and topics in wrestling that, when Amateur Wrestling News put them on the cover and pick the right photos, and you look at the magazine and its finished product and be like, wow, this is going to be a great issue?
Oh gosh, Jason, there's so many. What I remember most about the sport is the Bedlam series when Oklahoma State and Oklahoma back in the day. I think we had Stan Abel on the cover lifting up one of his wrestlers, Bill Lamb. I think Bill Lamb on his back, and when they broke Oklahoma State's 70-something streak. And the Olympic Games was great. Atlanta, I covered the Olympic Games. We had Tom Brands on the cover, and we shared our experiences that we had in Atlanta. In the Las Vegas tournament, I got a kick out of that. I got to go right about that for about 10, 15 years straight. That was one of my favorites. Matter of fact, Bill Nelson, who's still around, old Arizona coach, he invited me to the first Arizona Invitational, which later became the Las Vegas Invitational. I stayed at his house. He took me around, and later Mark Chiarella, he'd bring me into Las Vegas and give me a hotel. And I'd write that up every year. That was a highlight, I think. And just a lot of stuff, too many matches behind me to think about one or a few.
When we look at what wrestling coverage is now, we've got a couple magazines, we've got numerous websites, we've got information with social media that's instantaneous. I mean, we want the score of a match from the Big Ten. We can turn on the TV and watch it live, or we can log on to the internet and watch it live. When you look at the foundations that Amateur Wrestling News has in the sport of wrestling, I honestly believe that what I do and what the Mat.com does, what Flow Wrestling does, what even Win Magazine does, what we do would not have been possible without Amateur Wrestling News blazing the trail and providing that opportunity and showing that there was a desire for wrestling coverage. How do you look at that statement and be like, yeah, I guess we did kind of lead the way?
Yeah, I think so. You're right. Jess Hogue is the man. He's the one that started it, and it's so different now. You're right. You can't. We don't even do results that much anymore. We do feature articles and whatnot, historical articles, and it's completely different now. But Jess Hoke, he had a simple idea way back in the day. His sons all went to Michigan State, and he could never figure out what they were doing. And that's when he started the magazine in 1958, whatever year it was, 56. And you're right. He was, of course, he's in the National Hall of Fame too, and deserves every second of it. And he started it, and you're right. We did a big thing for the sport, but because back then we were the only show in town too. But now it's completely different.
When you look at the impact that you've had on the magazine, and then you get the call that you've been nominated and you're going to go into the Hall of Fame in the 40th Honors Weekend, the grand reopening, what were your initial reactions when you got the call? Who called you and who broke the news to you?
Well, Leroy Smith, but that was 8 months ago. When you first called, you think Hall of me? I said, what? But it really didn't sink in. You get elected, and the press releases out 8 months ago. But then it really didn't all dawn on me till this weekend. It didn't really sink in until this weekend. When I'm standing there next to Bill Harlow, one of my 60s heroes, Brandon Slay, Olympic champion. I'm going in with these guys. I'm standing here next to these guys. I mean, that's like in the Twilight Zone, This weekend was really amazing to figure out that I'm in the Hall of Fame. So it took 8 months to sink in. Let's put it that way.
When I broke in, I was a single guy, excited to be covering wrestling, and I'm guessing that the situation was similar to you. And then we all get older, we all grow up, we all become family men and whatnot. And when you became a family man, how much did you start having to go, all right, I got to balance home now. I can't just spend all my time on wrestling.
Well, fortunately, the magazine was. Well, each year you get better and better, and you do things faster and faster. And after so many, by the time I had a family, I was entranced. I could do my job with my eyes closed. And in our office, it's not 8 to 5. We come in when we want to. We come in when we want. I got a lot of leverage back then. And as a matter of fact, when my twins were born, they had some problems, like your daughter did. And John gave me half the summer off. I'd come in, work a half a day, and take off the rest of the half a day. So I had a great situation there at the magazine. We never clocked in. We did what we wanted to do. It just got the work done. That was it. So it was pretty simple for me. The family. It wasn't like my father, who was a musician. He was out all night. That's what I was going to be when I was young. And I'm sure glad I didn't go down that road, because it's completely different.
Now, what's fatherhood bring to the table? Because I learned this firsthand, but in the era of there wasn't the internet and there wasn't as much coverage. I mean, you still had to hustle a bit more, and then you've got kids to take care of. All of a sudden, your priorities change. You've got the flexibility with the magazine, but did your professional mindset change at all when you realize, okay, I've got to pay attention to more than just me and my work?
Well, it really didn't, because I was already in. My kids were born in 2000, so I was already 20 years in and really established. And our magazine, we kind of did the same thing every year. The same high school. Each issue was the same as the year before. The high school All-America team, the Las Vegas, the Midlands. We had a set schedule, and I was used to it. I had no problem. I was a lot quicker than I was when I first started, and it really didn't affect me at all. Like I say, the flexibility really helped.
I want to go back a little bit and talk about the technology. I mean, were you typing this stuff on typewriters? What was the presentation? You talked about the copy paper and whatnot, but what tools were you using, and how quickly would you have to come back from, say, Las Vegas and then go back in and then start typing away? I mean, I as much as I hit the delete button and the backspace button when I'm typing on my computer, I can only imagine how meticulous you had to be to get these things right, because you made an error, you got to go back and do the whole thing over again.
Yeah, we were on regular electric typewriters back then. Jess Hope actually started. He never got on an electric typewriter. He was on one of those standard things. I don't know how he typed on that thing, but he had long fingers. He just did that. But no, I would write my stories, Jason, in the car on the way home from an Iowa trip or a Vegas trip. I would actually, because most of the time we'd go by car. We didn't have the money to fly around everywhere back then, or even now. I would take my notebook in the car. I'd have hours to write. I'd write all my stuff longhand in the car. Even my columns sometimes I'd write in the car. And when I got back, it was basically 3/4 done. So all I got to do is type it. So that's how that happened.
Now, when you covered an event, what was typically your format? I mean, you'd get there, you'd probably have a seat at a table. I'm guessing the press tables aren't quite as robust as they are now, but say you're covering nationals and notebooks and steno pads and whatnot. I mean, what was basically your process when you had to, say, cover a national championship?
Well, unlike the news people that have to turn in a story every day, the NCAA tournament to me was almost a vacation. I didn't have to do anything but enjoy the people in the matches. I'd jot down some stuff in a notebook, but I'm smart enough and experienced enough. When I got back home, I remember what happened. And I used to write. One of my favorite columns at the tournament was I'd go weight by weight and give a play-by-play, not a play-by-play, but it's kind of notes of each weight class. But mostly I would just do it by ear. I didn't really take. I'd go, like I said, I'd go to Las Vegas and I may ask a few coaches some quotes when I was there, but use them. But basically, I would just shoot from the hip and I didn't have to work that hard. Those daily newspaper guys, they got the job. Mine was easy, I thought. It was fun, easy and fun.
When we look at the community that wrestling has, that a lot of people say that wrestling people, we're a family. We'll some of us will get in arguments, and the next time we see each other, it'll be like nothing ever happened. And you get into these relationships. I mean, there's people I see now for the last 18 years at the junior nationals in Fargo that, 18 years of spending 8 days with people, you become friends. And when you look back at all the people you've met and all the friends and colleagues you've accumulated over the years, is it one of those things where when you go to nationals now, it's like, man, I don't have time to watch wrestling because I'm end up talking to all my friends?
Well, yes and no. I don't miss a match, Jason. I'm one of those guys that goes to, when I go to the tournament, I'm all there to watch the matches. And, when the break time comes, I visit. But I've always been a guy that loves to watch all the competition. I don't miss a round. So I don't, I love the sports. I love the sport for some reason, and I love to watch wrestling. So I don't miss anything to talk to my friend. So I don't miss anything to talk to my friends. So there you go.
Yeah, they know what you're there for.
Yeah, I can talk to them at the break time, whatever. But, and I'm not a party guy, Jason. I'm, I don't drink, and a lot of guys go out and party afterwards. And I don't know how they do it because I'm dead tired of done watching those matches. A round lasts like half the day. 2 rounds. I'm tired. I go back and take a nap and then wait up for the next round. I'm all wrestling.
We talk about some of the locations over the years for the NCAA Championships. I've only been attending since 2002. You've been attending since the 70s. And when it comes to favorite places to go to watch the Nationals, what are some of your favorite cities that you've had to experience with the NCAA Championships? You know what,
Jason? If the tournament was held in Podunk, Nebraska, that'd be fine with me. I don't really care about the town. However, I did like the college campuses. I loved going to Iowa State. I loved going to Princeton. Corvallis at Oregon State University. I liked the college campus. I know that's not what is never going to happen again because of the volume of people that go. But I like the college campuses. I don't have a favorite place now. St. Louis is fine, but I really don't care where the thing is held as long as I get to see it.
There's been so many changes in college wrestling since you jumped on with Amateur Wrestling News. We've got different rule changes. There's been various modifications, it seems like, every year now, maybe even more than the international styles. But when you look at some of the bigger changes in college wrestling, what are some things that you think really shaped the product of what we see today?
Too many changes, I think. Just you imagine if baseball changed the rules every year. I think it's hurt our sport. It's trying to mess with the rules. Taking the fight out of the bar arms and all that stuff. I just think it used to be a lot different in the day, and I kind of wish they'd leave it alone. But that's just my opinion. I'm probably wrong, but that's what I think.
Well, what are some added changes you think that have improved it?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I really can't say.
All right, as we move forward, then, how long do you see yourself doing this? I mean, it's you spent almost 40 years at a place. People got to be doing the math. I mean, how long do you see yourself with Amateur Wrestling News and continue to doing what you love to do?
Yeah, I'm kind of semi-retired now. I help. I don't do a column each month any longer. Somebody else does the rankings. All I do is help with it. I don't do a column every month. But the bottom line is, what else would I do? I was thinking, well, I can quit and go fishing, but I don't really want to. I love what I'm doing, so why not just hang around and help out when I can? I get people calling me at least once every week or two with some wrestling question, history, and then I go back and I look it up and I answer their question and I help them out. I get friends that rely on me for research. I'm into that a lot now. We got 2 or 3 writers that rely on me for that stuff, and I'm also looking for a new story. I was looking through the brackets the other day, and I saw this guy named Gazzoni, and he was I don't know if he was 115-pound NCAA champion. He wasn't even seeded. The next year he was number 1 seed and won. I said, who is this Tony Gazzoni? So I got my friend Norm Palazzi, he got to Pennsylvania. I said, look, you want to write a story on this guy? Yeah, I know the guy. The Gazzoni move. I said, all right, that's right. That's where the Gazzoni move came from. So he did a great 1.5-page feature on Gazzoni, and that's what I do. I'm probably going to keep my hand in as long as the magazine is out there. I'll be with them.
We've talked about how much technology has changed wrestling coverage, but why do you think we still need a publication like Amateur Wrestling News, and we need magazines? We need something printed for people to take with them on airplanes and read them in the bathrooms and get them signed by people on the cover. I mean, where do you think the relevance of AWN will continue to be relevant throughout the future of the sport?
Well, that's a good question. Kids don't read magazines anymore. They just want to get on the internet and look. Yeah, it's a real good question. Of course, the old timers are still around, but when they die off, we've lost subscribers over the years because of that. And but we do feature stories, and the stuff we do you can't find anywhere. And just like the other magazines are the same way. There's always going to be a spot for us, and even though it's not as much as it is in the past, there's still a reason why we're here. And coffee, even I think you say I got 1 subscriber and a guy passes the magazine around 5 times, so we probably have 5 times as many subscribers as we would have because people are passing the magazine around. So I don't know. That's a good question, but maybe magazines are coming back in a way. I don't know. It's hard to say.
All right, Ron, I've got a segment here where I go 10 questions and see if you can get them in 90 seconds. I want the gut reaction. I want the first thing that comes to your mind.
Oh, not this. I'm not that quick, but I'll try.
All right. Number one, best match you've ever watched.
Oh, easy. Mark Chiarella and Mark Chiarella and Dave Schultz, 13-10 NC semifinals, 1978.
You win the Olympic gold tonight. What do you have for dinner?
Probably a medium sirloin steak.
Who was the best wrestler people didn't talk about?
Ooh, didn't talk about. Gosh. I don't have an answer for that.
All right. What's your favorite flavor of Gatorade?
I don't drink Gatorade.
Number 5, favorite wrestling movie?
The first one. What was it? What's the first one? The big one.
Well, Vision Quest.
Vision Quest. That'd be Vision Quest by far.
All right. Favorite international wrestler of all time?
Satyev.
If you win the Powerball, what's the first college wrestling program you're going to start?
Oh, shoot. Oh gosh, I don't know. Somewhere in Texas, maybe. I have no answer for that.
Who was the best JV wrestler on your high school team?
JV, probably. Who would know that if I even gave the name out? You know,
they would.
They would. Let's see. It'd be Clyde Reed.
You've traveled the world, traveled the country. What is your favorite restaurant on the planet?
Favorite restaurant. I don't have a favorite restaurant, really. Let's just say St. Louis. What's his name? Shannon's place. With all the baseball stuff in there. Mike Shannon's place.
And what did you do for your 21st birthday?
Oh, shoot. Jason, 21st birthday. Probably rode my motorcycle somewhere for celebration.
All right, I'm not sure what the time was on that, but I love the answers. And Ron, in the time we have left, I just want you to maybe explain a few things or just kind of give some thanks to people along the way that we haven't talked about throughout the course of this episode, and kind of just give your final elevator pitch on what it means to you to be involved with amateur wrestling news for so many years and to be inducted into the Hall of Fame with the Order of Merit.
Oh, it's a dream job. You know, when I was hanging around that office in 1978, I couldn't believe I was actually sitting there with that magazine and those guys that didn't know me from the moon. And when I got that job, I was just flabbergasted. I couldn't believe it, and I enjoyed every year that I had with that magazine. And the Hall of Fame, man, that's something else. That I had no idea that I would be. I got to go in with some great guys. Bill Harlow's one of my favorites, and when Leroy called me, I was shocked, surprised, and happy to be in the Hall of Fame. What a deal!
Any advice for wrestling crazed wannabe journalists that want to break into this field? There's a lot of opportunities now. And what are some things that you learned back then that you still believe today stand the test of time?
Oh gosh. Like I said, I really wasn't a journalist when I started, so I can't put myself in that position. I was just a fan. And if I would have been a journalist going in, it'd be completely different. But I wasn't, so my advice wouldn't be worth anything. So
what I get out of that is never stop being a fan, right?
Exactly. There you go. If you gotta enjoy what you're doing. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, do something else.
Legends is presented by the National Wrestling Hall of Fame and produced by the Matt Talk Podcast Network. If you want to hear more from wrestling's legends, contribute to this ongoing project at halloffamelegends.org/contribute. One-time and small monthly donation options are available. We hope you've enjoyed this look into wrestling history. This has been Legends. I'm Jason Bryant.